and welcome to episode 2 of k-zipcooks. I am Kelsey. You can find me on Instagram and all social media and whatnot as k-zipknits. Many of you know me as a knitter and one half of the Wet Coast Wools podcast. But during our little our break from regular programming, so to speak, we're going to do some more baking. So I decided today that I felt like doing something more fresh, I guess you could say. We're gonna do blueberry buckle, which is, if you are fans of the cinnamon coffee cake that you can get at Starbucks, you will, if you like a fruity twist on that, this one is a really good one. There's no coffee in it at all. It's called a coffee cake, I know, but no coffee. It's a really good one. It's a kind of a denser cake, but chock full of blueberries and whatnot. So I hope you enjoy. So what we're gonna do is I'll start same as last time. I'll go over some of the ingredients and then we'll figure out the process. So for your batter, in my KitchenAid here, I have 1/4 cup of butter. I have 3/4 cup of sugar, as well as 2 cups of flour. I have 2 cups of blueberries. These ones are frozen. I got these last summer when they were in season here in the Lower Mainland, but you can use fresh, you can use frozen. If you use frozen, which you'll see later, or very cold ones, your batter's gonna get really, really thick, but it doesn't matter. It all comes out great in the oven. Over here, I've got the milk, so we have 3/4 cup of milk. In this little pan here, or bowl, we have, I just have to double check so I don't say the wrong, 2 teaspoons baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon salt. And then you'll also need 1 egg, and that's your main batter. So it's quite a simple batter. It's a very dense batter. It's delicious. This is one of those cakes that I enjoy even eating the batter for. It's quite delicious. And then you make kind of a crumbly cinnamon topping. So we'll use another 1/4 cup of butter for that, as well as we have 1/4 cup of, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/3 cup flour, as well as 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you want, I usually put a little bit more cinnamon in because I like mine a little bit more kick, so I usually put closer to 3/4 teaspoon. One thing I love about this recipe is it doesn't have a ton of butter in it. You can also use margarine, so if you don't have butter kicking around at home, margarine works fine as well. Alright, so to prepare, I use I think it's a 9, or it's an 8x11 pan, but something like a 9x9, 8x10, something in this kind of vicinity. It doesn't have to be a glass pan, it can be a metal bottomed pan. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some extra butter that I have, and we're going to just put a healthy amount on a piece of paper towel, and you're just gonna massage your pan. You want to make sure you get all the corners. The corners are probably the main thing, because for the most part this cake doesn't really seem to stick too much. The part where it does tend to stick is if any of the blueberries are touching the sides or the corners especially. So just a really good thick coating of butter, and then you'll be in business. There we go. I think that's probably pretty good. You can also use a little bit of flour if you want, which is kind of more of a traditional cake approach to this, so that is another option as well. So now that we have prepped our pan, I'm going to put it off to the side. So we'll start now with making our batter. So I'm going to move our topping off to the side for now. And then going to ignore my cup of tea. We're going to bring our KitchenAid in. You don't have to have an electric mixer for this. I like having mine. It is a good friend. If you use a paddle attachment, not a dough hook, not the whisk. I have one that has this handy little, whatchamacallit here, little extra kind of scrubby bit, my very technical terms, which scrapes the sides a little bit better. So you're going to start first just by putting this on to about a medium speed for a moment, about 30 seconds, so that way your butter gets nice and fluffy. Once your butter is good and fluffy, I'll just give you, it's not going to look like a lot, as you know, because it's, we'll see if you can, it looks like not very much, but once it looks kind of like this, then you're good to go. You just basically want to make sure it's nice and soft, really well kind of broken apart. What you're going to do next is you're going to crack your single egg into the bowl. And then you're going to put that back on again. First kind of slow. We're going to get that egg incorporated. While our egg is whipping into our butter, I'm going to add our baking powder and our salt into our flour and sugar. So that's all in one go there. Give it a little bit of a mix. Doesn't have to be super mixed, but so again, my very, commercial kitchen approach to cooking. My fingers are in half of what I cook, so it's a good thing it gets cooked before I share it with my family. Now that my eggs and butter are blended, I'm going to put a couple spoonfuls of the flour and sugar, salt, and baking powder mixture in. You don't have to be too exact with this, but what we're going to do now is we're going to alternate mixing in the flour mixture, our dry ingredients, with our milk, which is our wet ingredients. So I'm going to put those on again on medium until it's all kind of incorporated. And once that makes a relatively smooth batter, I'm going to add my first quarter cup of milk. And I'm going to start to add in some more of my dry ingredients. Of course, being careful not to get my spatula too close to my paddle. If anyone has ever done that, you know it's not exactly not a fun time. The rest of our milk in. Actually, we'll do it 2 more times. So put about another quarter of a cup of milk in. And let that combine. Now, the rest of our dry ingredients, which is always a mess. Always a mess. And then the rest of our wet ingredients. So you're going to just mix that till it just comes together. You don't want it to be too over whipped, but just till it all kind of comes together, and then I switch it off. And then I usually at this point will go and make sure that anything that's on the paddle, just to make sure that there's no butter sticking up at the bottom or getting tight. Make sure that scrape everything down from the sides. Sometimes with the KitchenAids, I find that the attachment doesn't quite get that little well at the very, very bottom, so I just like to lift it up and fold it over once or twice. So now that I have done that, we're gonna put it on for another split second or two. But this is where things are gonna get thick. We're gonna add our blueberries now, and you're only gonna have a few seconds to whip it if they're cold like this, because your dough is gonna get really, really firm really fast. So I'm gonna turn this on and then just go for it. And that's it. So you don't want to blitz them for too long, even if you have fresh ones in there, just because they're going to break apart and squish. Like even the frozen ones, you can see some of the skins kind of come down a little bit, but that's okay. It's not the prettiest of dishes, but it's sure tasty. And it goes really great with a cup of tea, or I think I might have to make a cappuccino again later. All right, so I'm going to remove this so you can see kind of what the batter looks like. See if I can get it in a little bit closer. There you go. And our oven is already ready, so we're good to go there. So we're going to bring back our prepared pan now. And I'm going to scoop out our dough. And it is definitely, this one is definitely more of a dough than a batter. Like when you think of a cake, you think of like a more runny batter that evenly spreads. This one is going to take a lot of kind of coaxing to get it to cover the bottom of your pan. But it is delicious and it is so worth it. It's so good. This actually recipe reminds me a little bit of a blueberry muffin recipe my mom used to make when I was a kid. And it's like, it's a little bit sweeter, not a lot sweeter, but it's a little bit sweeter. Has a little bit more blueberries in it, but it's delicious. Alright, so it doesn't have to be super pretty looking. Just try to kind of get more or less even coverage, so that way the whole bottom of your pan is covered. And then you're good to go. Because this, of course, as it cooks, it will become less kind of glumped up in one spot. Alright. And now it's time to make our topping. So we have our butter, our other quarter of a cup butter. So you want it to be room temperature so it'll just mash up really nice and easily like this. Just going to give it a good squidge around so it's all kind of broken. Then we're going to mix in our little bit of sugar, flour, and cinnamon. And we're just going to mash it around until it becomes a really thick kind of batter, crumble type topping almost. I like using a fork for this because you can squish the butter into the dough or into the dry ingredients and then it kind of crumbles out. You're kind of going for that, if you've ever made pastry before, like pie pastry, that really kind of, you don't want it to be totally mixed. You want it to be lumps of butter with flour so that you get a uneven kind of crumbly texture. It's not about making it really all fine and even. So it's starting to look good there. So this is kind of that coarse, kind of crumbly thing is what you're going for. Again, me with my fingers. That's one thing. As a home cook, it doesn't matter if you get your fingers into the food, especially if you're the only one eating it. Although I have a feeling the husband and I will be both enjoying on this one. Alright, so then you just bring back in your pan here, and I'm just going to dump it all out. And you just kind of spread it around so that there's a little bit of the crumble over the entire top. Like so. So it's not very exciting looking, I know, but it is sure tasty. So we're going to leave this now, or not leave it, but we're going to pop it into the oven. It usually takes about 45 minutes to cook. Because I've put frozen blueberries in, it'll probably take a little bit longer. So just be aware of that. You want your whole top, this whole part will have gone kind of melty and a really dark golden color. And you should be able to insert a cake tester or a toothpick into the middle and pull it out and have it not be covered in dough. So welcome back. I've just taken this out of the oven. We're going to do a pinprick test to see. So I'm going to just plunk it into the middle. Comes out clean. You can just see there's little bits of blueberry. I don't know if the camera will like me or not. There we go. So just little bits of blueberry, but nothing else too dramatic on there. So we should be good. I'm not going to touch this without my oven mitts. Where did I put those? But so yeah, as you can see, it's a beautiful kind of golden color. Nice and crispy. If you do have a clear pan, you can see on the bottom it's all nice and brown and golden. Delicious, delicious. And I have cappuccinos on the side ready to go here in a moment. This is, you don't have to, like a traditional cake, you don't have to let it sit or whatever. You can dig in. In fact, I recommend you dig in while it's warm. I know I am. I'm craving some. So, as I said before, it's kind of like a coffee cake. It's nice and dense, very tasty. It's got lots of blueberries in it. It doesn't have a lot of butter in it, so you can sort of justify that it's healthy, maybe, sort of. But here I will cut out a slice so you can see what it looks like. It should come out of the pan nice and easy, Of course, I broke a part of it. Part of it apart. Can't speak. So there you go. You can see how nice and fluffy the texture is there. You can see it steaming. So this is a blueberry buckle. It's a great way to use up. You can do it with other fruit too. I've tried it with cherries before. I have some frozen cherries still in the freezer from last summer as well. I haven't tried it with plums, but I imagine that would be really delicious. So yeah, get inspired. You can try a mixture of fruit. Try maybe like raspberries, try rhubarb and strawberries, something like that. But it's very versatile and it is delicious. So until next time, thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.